So today we have been the entire day working, organizing everything for what we are going to do in these next weeks, and we have been working a lot in organizing all this, which is for the path. This, of course, there are things that we are doing for the group during the trip that we're going to do next week, but also our work for the energetical pattern that we are going to do. So sorry, but I'm gonna be these days very like dizzy in information. So because I have my head in these things for these days. We don't have the piano here, but we will have to do something with the piano eventually. We're always sharing screen, but now we are here, so we have to do something. So the topic for today is muscular system. The muscular system. Of course, that in the post I explain a lot of the details regarding the muscular system. But even though I don't want to get in the specifics of the biological aspects of this system, but I would like to go into the conceptual aspect of this system. So before we start, I would like to say something, which is that tomorrow we begin with Mercury retrograde. And this would mean that for sure you're noticing that, because I'm already getting in the mood of retrograde. I'm not explaining myself very well as usual. I'm getting lost in the points. I'm missing the communication or the translations. So when Mercury is retrograde, all the communications are very difficult, and even more the next days, the next weeks, we will have these changes on the time of the alignments. I will try to make it shorter because we won't have the entire the entire time to do so. So it would be weird. So I apologize in advance for this, because for sure it will be much more difficult to understand me or to keep following what I'm saying. So this is because maybe you won't be able to understand me better, and of course by my side I'm not going to be really the best one explaining maybe during these days. So Mercury retrograde will be until June 22nd. So we will have a few weeks with a very bad understanding. So terrible. For those who ask what is Mercury retrograde, just to explain you the image of this, to retrograde is to go backwards. That's the meaning of the word, to go backwards. And this is, from our point of view, how we see the planets moving around the sun. When you see the sun in the center, the planets go around. And when you look to the planets from our point of view, we will see that the planets move forward in front of the sun. So they kind of look like they are moving that way. And then when they turn behind the sun, it seems, from our point of view, it seems that they are walking backwards, okay, like doing the same path but going backwards. So this is why we perceive that the planet is like going backwards in its own path. So Mercury, when it goes ahead, it's talking about communication, and of course, when we see the planet going backwards, Mercury will represent like the opposite, like trying to shut up, like having all these misunderstandings and a lack of communication. So of course that in a positive way, if Mercury is communication, when it retrogrades, it is telling to us that we have to go inside to think about what we are doing, what we were saying. So it's not about communicating towards the outside, it's about to think and to speak with yourself within. So I would recommend you to take benefit from this 20 days ahead, to think about what we are going to say, what we communicate, what we express, so we can pay attention to that and not to make any mistake when we communicate. To begin with the muscular system, I just want to talk about the etymology of the word muscle, because when we say muscle, we usually think about strong and potential and strength, but it is so funny and so tender to see that muscle really means little mouse. Little mouse. So it's funny because in Latin, muso is mouse, and ulo is tiny. So musculo, muscle, is tiny mouse. So I think that is good to know, funny to know, because for the Latin people in their cultures, it was a common way to call the muscles like this, because when you move the muscles, it seems like if under the skin there's like a tiny rat, a tiny mouse that is moving from one side to another. So that's why they call it like this, musculo. Funny to know. So the muscular system is very important for the body to keep the temperature, to hold all the organs, to make a structure for it to be still. But mainly, this system is about movement. So the important part of this system is movement. Why the movement? How the movement begins in life. So we have to remember that in the first structures of life, the first unicellular beings, even if they are prokaryote or eukaryote, they will be unicellular beings that are moved by the outside, so the environment. They lived in water, they live in the oceans, in the seas, in the rivers. So these main beings, these main cells, they are moved by the environment from one side to another. So they depend on the tides. And because of this, sometimes the tides and also the currents of the water take them away from their source of food, from their source of light or heat. So this is why some of them had to evolve in order to move again to their source of nutrients. The prokaryote cells, usually they extended part of their skin to create like a tiny tail that moves in spiral. So it allows them to move back to the places, or to move towards the places of food or light. So this is how this main cells starts to move in the space, deciding where to go. The eukaryote cells, they will be much more complex. They start to divide and to specify different cells that are able to move the entire structure, so they could reach the spots of nutrients or light. So that's how we can have, for example, the how do you call this, medusa, water, jelly, water, I don't know the name. Jellyfish. Thank you. The jellyfish. So thank you. So the jellyfish, like one of the first beings on having this movement of the cells, allowing them to move in the space. Okay. So this is the beginning of the muscle system, which is the movement. So of course that through thousands of years of evolution, many beings started to design different ways of movement, until some animals created the bones. Through the bones, the muscles started to specify in different structures in different ways. So it divided into many specified muscles, until, for example, a human that can have 650 muscles in our bodies, allowing us to move a very complex structure. So the fascinating way in which we can understand how they move, because something that we take as known, something that we take as common in our days, like talking, like moving the hands, walking, doing everything that we do normally with our bodies, we don't usually think about how complex and specific it is, every one of the movements. Because the way in which we are able to move the body is because the cells of the body, the cells of the muscles, they are made of proteins, of two kinds of proteins, that they contract or extend according to electrical pulses. Those electrical pulses are received through the nervous system. So the nerves sends a signal of electricity. Like if you are doing like this to something, you see that electricity contracts the bodies, the things. So they are sending tiny little signals of electricity that contracts or extend these proteins, which makes that the muscles can contract or extend the entire muscle. So when you contract the muscle, the how to say, the tendons, they pull the bones so you can move it. So the reason why you move everything is basically because of electricity from your brain pushing every moment, every instant, by electrical pulses, each one of the cells in your muscles. It is amazing. If you think about it, it's incredible how the brain receives the signal from the five senses. It interprets the entire environment, and from that, it, like a computer, it sends precisely to each cell of the body what to move, in which direction, with which strength we have to do it. So it's incredible that something that we don't even think about needs so much energy and electricity all the time. So it's It's amazing. It's incredible. So we have nerve system and neurons that are telling our body, our muscles, what to do every time, all the time. The brain is saying to the muscles what to do, how to move, and everything. So we have three kinds of muscles. The first one are the smooth muscle system, the myocardium, which is the heart, and the stria, that is the one related to the skeleton. So the first one, the smooth, is the one that is surrounding the organs inside. So they they push the organs to make the digestion, to do all the things that we cannot control, that you don't have the will to control it. As the myocardium, which is the heart, that it's beating 60 to 100 times per minute. So they move constantly, and we don't have any control with our mind upon them. So they are muscles that work by themselves, receiving the signals from our brain. And then the third one, the stria, the skeleton one, is the main structure, is the whole structure that we have, that we know as muscle, and that we can control in our movement, the one that we are able to control somehow. So for sure we can think that is amazing. That is amazing how the heart can be moved by itself and you don't have to control it. But for me, what it's much more incredible is how you can, with your own mind, decide what to do with the movement of your hands to decide this that I am doing here, how the pulses of my brain are telling exactly which movement and how to do it to my hand. This is incredible. This is so fascinating that just electrical pulses can precisely tell the muscles how to move in which strength is incredible. So I know that this is sometimes that we don't really think about. These are moments like this when you think about it in a philosophical way, or maybe taking drugs. There's the only two ways in which you can feel so wonderful, amused by this movement. But I guess it's important to have this realization of how perfect is this machine that we live in, that we are. So, but now, besides this, I wanted to take these concepts into the mental idea of the universe and how we live in our life normally as a civilization. So when we think about the earth, for example, as a living being, we can understand that every living being that is inside the earth is like a cell within that body. So if we try to find the muscle system in our body, the earth, we will find that between the 40 to the 50% of the weight of the cells of this body are the muscles. Between the 40 and the 50% of our cells are in our flesh, in our muscles. So it's the weight. Almost 50% of our weight is muscles. So think about that 0.5% of all the living beings in this planet are related to the muscle system. So if we think about the muscle system being every cell in our body, in the body of the earth, we can think that half of the living beings in the planet are beings that, like the muscles, are just contracting or expanding, creating movement. But they cannot know, not even decide, where to move to or why they are moving. Because those decisions are taken by a tiny group of cells that we call the neurons. So almost the 50% of the living beings of the planet are moving because the 5% of the cells of the body are telling them where to and why. So we can understand here that exactly as our body is a fractalization of the universe, so inside of our body, in Earth and the entire universe, we have around 50% of our structure that all these beings that are part of the muscular system of the reality are just contracting and expanding, generating energy, heat, movement, but not being able to decide why and where to. When we take this concept into our society, we can relate that maybe all of us, these cells that we are living here, we are like muscle cells that are controlled by 1% of cells that decides and know what to do, and we are just controlled by them. For sure that the people that is here, a few of you, can relate this with many videos on YouTube about conspiracy theories that says that we are all being oppressed by the 1% of people that is in charge. And yeah, so think about it. Isn't this exactly as the muscle system called by the neurons? So now think about this. In our cultures of humanity, we are looking for freedom, and we say we want to set ourselves free, that we don't want them to be controlling us. So we are fighting to release this power to set ourselves free. But it would be a problem, because when we do that, suddenly the muscles don't know what to do. They fall down. They don't have strength. They cannot work anymore. So we die. We cannot move. Let's do this exercise. Think that you are a cell in the body, in your muscles. You are a cell in muscles. And you are moving, you are generating energy, but because you are receiving a signal, an electrical pulse from the neurons. So suddenly, some of the cells in the muscles start to say, hey, we are not living our lives as we would like to because we are being controlled by the nerve system. So every one of the cells in the body starts to say, we have to set ourselves free from the nervous system. So we have to cut it. We have to set ourselves free from this. So what is the option? If the brain is the one ruling, and we in the body say the ones from above are controlling the ones below because they are in the head, so we have to cut the connection with them. We have to get away from them and release this power. So do you know how to disconnect them? The way you disconnect the brain with the muscles is through here in the atlas. So it's a hit here, like this, that disconnects the cerebellum behind with the spine. So when you disconnect this, all the body is free from the nerve system, but you also can't move anymore. You're a vegetal. You can do anything. You don't have any pulse. You cannot move. Think about that for a moment, and let's talk about it. So here we arrive to the concept of the mistake that we usually do, which is very understandable with the money, with the concept of money. When we see this system, we start to ask ourselves, why? How can we get rid of this system of oppression and control? And the reason and the reality is that we cannot, because the system works like this. In the entire universe, it works like that. So it's not the system the problem. The problem is who is ruling the system. It's not about get rid of that 1%. It's about who is in charge of that 1%. Okay, so this is exactly the same mistake we do with money. A lot of people say the problem of humanity is money. No, money doesn't have any problem. The problem is the value and the expectation that we put in money. It's not the money, it's what we believe about money, the problem. The same thing happened with that 1% of humanity. It's not a problem, that 1%. The problem is, what are they doing with that 1%? Okay? So the conflict that we have here is not that there is a 1% ruling, is that we started to think about everything separated. We as humanity divided the entire body, saying that this is your problem, this is my problem. So we started to divide the whole thing, giving the responsibility of something to someone else, believing that we don't have anything to do with that action. So the brain start to think about just the brain, the muscles think only about the muscles, like if we are not part of the same thing. When we start to think that we are part of something and that what I am doing is a part of the whole, so I know that I cannot do all the tasks by myself, that I need a team. And we start to work as one, working for the whole thing. So important to see in this way, we are a team. Biology teaches that we are a team, that every part of the cells, every cell, every organ is unique in its own way, but they are all working for the entire thing. And not because they are equal, because they respect the integrity of each one of them. I know my potential, so I can expand myself and make the others grow with myself, with me. So we are all one, growing in our own potential. what we do in our society is blaming someone for something that is wrong, and we start to fight in the same system. We have to see this as a team. While we perceive our social body as something that is separated from one thing to another, we will still have all these conflicts. So I would invite you to make this reflection of the topic conspiracy theories. All these conspiracies that makes us think about there are a percentage of humanity that is controlling the rest of us. And I would recommend you to stop thinking into conspiracies, blaming another ones for something that is happening to us, to stop thinking that there is someone that controls us and people that is controlled, and question ourselves behind this fight and think as the muscular system. In the system, there is always someone that will guide and someone that will be guided and put the strength to move. But if these two don't trust each other, we have a problem. So it's not about a fight between the ones that feel themselves control and the ones that think that control. It's about to recognize what can I do with my own inner potential and strength. And from that, how can I manage to help the people I trust to be in that 1%? And I will tell you something here for you to be kind of calm. We will never reach the perfect system. It's impossible, because homeostasis, the process of balance, of harmony, is something that we need to manage every day. It's not that you reach the perfect thing and suddenly you say, oh, that's it, and you don't do anything else. It's something that we have to transform every day. Imagine that you are looking for perfection and you found this perfection in a song. You find the song, this music, and you have the perfect harmony, and it's so perfect that suddenly it became silence because you don't have a story to tell, you don't have anything to move. So suddenly you were looking for the best song and you found silence. What do we do? Can you get now that the reality is basically as muscles with neurons, and they need to work together in order to find the balance? That if we are wondering for a system of balance where only the muscle cells control everything, that's called death and silence. In this life, for sure, we are not going to be able to see the result of the awakening. We are a humanity that are in the process of awakening. So we are still asleep, trying to wake up, trying to transform ourselves. So don't expect to live the perfection in this life, but at least put everything that you have into see at least one neuron waking up. In the meantime, as a muscle would say, let's work on it. The vibration for today is cool. The statement for today is, I am a channel between paths.